You guys know most times when Chicago Cubs insider Bruce Levine speaks, we all listen. Why? Because a lot of times he's close enough to the front office to know what they're thinking or what they're planning. And usually he gives us tad bits and little hints. Well, he dropped a whole bombshell on today's Marquee Sports Network channel talking about Sandy Alcántara. And we asked the question, is he the missing piece to a championship rotation? Look, we're going to talk about his numbers. We're going to talk about what a trade would look like. And we're going to cover all of that on today's episode of Chicago Cubs Central. Let's talk about it. Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of Chicago Cubs Central, your number one spot for all things Chicago Cubs. I am your host, Mike Jones. Thank you all so much for tuning in to another episode. I appreciate you all so much. Thanks for your feedback, your comments, for telling me what you like, what you don't like. Listen, we are growing together as a Cubs family. Stick with your boy. I promise you, you won't want to miss the journey. We're going to have a good time this offseason leading into next season. So make sure if this is your first time watching that you like, share, and subscribe. Listen, Bruce Levine dropped a bombshell on the latest episode of the Marquee Sports Network. He was talking about the Chicago Cubs potentially trading for Sandy Alcántara. So listen, several outlets and insiders, including Bruce, have floated the idea that the Cubs could swing a trade for Sandy Alcántara, especially given their need for rotation help, and not just any rotation help, front-end rotation help. The way Bruce Levine put it in his episode was, listen, you put Sandy Alcántara at the front line starting, and then after that, Cade Horton as the 1-2 punch, and then you got the three veterans backing them up. He said that's a championship rotation right there. So that's what we really want to get into today, and we want to look and ask ourselves, could that potential trade boost the Chicago Cubs and lead them towards a potential championship rotation? So on the Mully and Haw show on 670 The Score, Levine said the Cubs are looking at adding that pitcher that we've been talking about. I wouldn't be shocked. Maybe as early as this week, they may make the move for another starting pitcher. However, and this is the key, when they asked if that target might be Alcántara, Levine didn't comment. Instead, he suggested the Cubs are more likely to go after a good, young, veteran pitcher, but did not name names. And in the next context, he indicated that he doesn't expect a deal for Alcántara maybe to happen so quickly, but it could happen. So, again, kind of talking a little back and forth with us. But when you look at this, you ask yourself, what are some things that could potentially stop the Chicago Cubs from making this trade for Sandy Alcántara? Well, there is the rationale behind it. The asking price of Sandy Alcántara is believed to be very high. Remember, the Chicago Cubs were talking to the Marlins. They were talking to the Pittsburgh Pirates. They were talking to so many different teams about their pitchers when the trade deadline happened last season, when the Chicago Cubs were looking to bolster it up, when they were really trying to make a deep playoff run. Instead, they opted to go with some trades with the Nationals for Michael Soroka and other pieces that didn't necessarily pan out the way they thought it would. But the Chicago Cubs still end up getting the top wild card seed and making it to the second round of the MLB postseason. However, if they look to go farther, if they want to go farther, then the Chicago Cubs have to commit and go get a front end guy. What does that mean? That means that somebody else is probably going to end up getting pushed out of that starting rotation, or they're going to go with a six-man rotation. Now, it's not beyond the thought process that the Chicago Cubs could go with a six-man rotation and then use Colin Ray as a bullpen piece. It's also not above the thought or imagination that the Chicago Cubs move Justin Steele to the bullpen for this complete 2026 season when he does come back. They go with the five-man starter group, and Justin Steele actually is a bullpen piece. Let me know your thoughts on that. What are your thoughts on Justin Steele just for this season, pitching out the bullpen for the Chicago Cubs? Not necessarily having to start games, coming in, pitching out of the bullpen. Maybe if, so let's say somebody like Shota Imanaga or Jameson Taillon don't have it going one day, you then counteract that with somebody like a Justin Steele that can come in and get you shutout innings also. What are your thoughts about that? About bringing him along slowly and then maybe in 2027, or if there's a lockout in 2027 and 2028, allowing him to be a starting pitcher again. What are your thoughts on that? Let me know in the comment section below what your thoughts are on that. But back to Alcántara. And so in short, when I look at things, Alcántara has been discussed. But like I said, the Chicago Cubs are looking all over the place, but Alcántara can be a piece for the Chicago Cubs. So Bruce Levine, he mentioned that when he was looking at Sandy Alcántara, 17 million in 26, that's really good for starting pitching. I mean, think about this, 17 million in 26. Shota Imanaga's making 22 in 26. So I mean, look at that. And Shota's not your ace no longer. He will not be the handed the ball opening day. So you look at that, and then you got 21 million in 2027. That's another really deal. That's 2 years of control, 2 opportunities for the Chicago Cubs to have control of a pitcher that at times has looked dominant. Now, before analyzing his trade value, it's important to show how Alcántara pitched in 2025. So in 2025, Alcántara got off to a rough start. Through May, his ERA was 8.47, with a strikeout rate around 16.9% and a walk rate near 12.2%. Not numbers you would expect to see from an ace, right? Given those numbers, scouts and front offices, including in rumor space, were skeptical. Some noted that while he still throws hard, his chase rate, whiff rate, and strikeout rate place him in a lower 30 percentile of the league for those categories. Concerning for someone who was supposed to be the anchor of a rotation. Over the next few starts, after that brutal start, there were some signs of life. In a recent 23 inning stretch over 4 starts, he posted a 2.74 ERA with 19 strikeouts, 5 walks, only allowing 18 hits, and a grounder rate of 46.4%. So that uptick showed that he can still get swing and misses and go deeper into games. But it was relatively short and not enough to erase the brutal damage of what he did earlier in 2025. So, I mean, the question here is can he bounce back? Now, I don't know about you guys, but if it's one thing I think I have faith in with this Cub, it's that Tommy Hotovy can get somebody right. We also have a pitching guru also that's working in AAA and also is sent out on special assignment to work with guys. He's been working with Justin Steele a little bit this summer. So you look at these pieces, you say to yourself, I mean, there's a shot for Sandy Alcántara to return back to Cy Young type form. And then with this, paying this type of money for a potential 2-year Cy Young award winner, you know, I mean, like I said, that's or at least a Cy Young candidate. I mean, that's not something to sneeze at. That's guaranteeing he's going to come out and he's going to give you innings, shut down, lock down innings of baseball. So in my eyesight, I'm looking at Sandy and I'm saying to myself, you know, I'm kind of talking myself into this. I'm kind of buying what Bruce is selling here. But if you're not buying it yet, let's talk about trade value reality and why this trade is tricky. So given his 2025 performance, here are the key obstacles if the Cubs or any team were serious about acquiring Alcántara. Once again, the high asking price as well as the high risk. So as mentioned by coverage of the 2025-2026 rumor cycle, teams see Alcántara as a reclamation project more than as a sure thing. The high contract and unpredictable performance make many front office hesitant. But the Cubs also have their own priorities. According to Levine, Chicago is more likely to pursue maybe a good young veteran pitcher rather than betting on a big money reclamation project. However, Alcántara still throws hard, and his reduced strikeout chase rate and increased hard contact are red flags. But the Chicago Cubs definitely are still taking a look at him. You look at the fact also that he did have some inconsistent play within his game. With the recent flashes in as many starts, 2025 was still super rough for him, allowing 4+ runs in as many outings. That kind of volatility is risky when you're trying to build a stable rotation. So listen, this is where you ask yourself this trade question. If you're Jed Hoyer, if you're Carter Hawkins, is Alcántara still worth the gamble? Or would the Cubs be better looking elsewhere. So lastly but not least, should the Chicago Cubs pull the trigger? On one hand, the upside for him. He's a right-hander, former ace, still throws hard, and if he rediscovers the form, he could be a steal compared to the typical ace-level contracts. Again, 17 and 21 million are not ace-level contracts, y'all. That's a steal. On the other hand, the 2025 body of work is concerning. The higher ERA, the control problems, the inconsistent outings, and the risk of hard contact. That hard contact really, really, really makes me nervous more than anything. And then you have another wild card. If the price is low enough, say a couple mid-level prospects plus a dart throw, maybe it's worth it, especially if the Cubs rotation still has weak spots. But at the same time, if they're going to want some of your top tier best players for him, well, that's a different question. That's a different scenario all the way around. So listen, when we look at this, the bottom line is Sandy Alcántara remains one of the most talked about pitchers in the trade season. Thanks in part to the comments from insiders like Bruce Levine and the Cubs' clear need for rotation upgrades. But his 2025 performance has been wildly inconsistent with a few bright spots, offset by poor outings and shaky strikeout walk rates. If Chicago pulls the trigger in the winter meetings before the holiday season, it could be a bold swing with a high reward, or a painful swing and a miss. And we definitely don't want that. But listen, we're going to keep tracking this story and seeing what actually ends up happening with the Chicago Cubs and Sandy Alcántara. But right now, I need you guys to get active in the comments below. What are your thoughts on Sandy Alcántara? What are your thoughts on the Chicago Cubs potentially trading for him? Is this something that you want to see happen? Do you agree with Bruce that this guy makes our rotation a championship level rotation? Or are you saying, I think there's other pitchers out there that we could go get that will be better off and are a little bit more consistent than Sandy Alcántara? I believe in nothing else. If the Chicago Cubs do swing for this, that I believe Tommy Hotovy will get him in the best shape possible and ready to go for the season. I believe in our pitching staff. So let me know your thoughts below. I appreciate you guys. Make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Guys, we got one more episode, and then we're going to take Thursday off, and then Friday we'll be back with more Cubs content for you. We want to enjoy Thanksgiving and wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. But like I said, make sure that you guys like, share, and comment. I appreciate you so much. Until next time, go Cubs, go.
Thank you for watching another episode of Chicago Cubs Central, the #1 spot for all Chicago Cubs content. Remember to like, share, subscribe for more Cubs content.